Hello, dear story lovers. At the amount of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a huge series of special stories for you. Subscribe now. The auction house of New Vega was a sensory overload. Jack's boots clacked on polished obsidian floors as he stepped into the vast, low-lit chamber. Holographic flames flickered along the walls, casting an eerie glow on the crowd that gathered under the neon-laced dome. From smugglers and treasure hunters to diplomats in disguise, the room was filled with the galaxy's most notorious and ambitious. All had come for one reason: to claim pieces of the universe that most would never know existed. Jack adjusted the collar of his jacket, a sleek synth-leather ensemble that made him look wealthier than he actually was. He had worked the last 3 years scouring asteroid fields and derelict spacecrafts, flipping his finds for enough credits to secure an invitation to this legendary event. His eyes darted to the hollow displays projecting the items up for bid: ancient weapons, crystalline sculptures from dead worlds, and glowing artifacts rumored to possess untapped power. Jack had his sights set on Lot 117, described in the catalog as a unique relic of cosmic significance. He glanced at his wristpad, reading the lot's brief description again. The words "unique relic" danced in his mind, conjuring images of long-lost alien technology, perhaps a key to untold mysteries. His pulse quickened at the thought of the glory such a find could bring. This was his chance to make his name in the galactic artifact trade. The auctioneer, a tall, skeletal figure with cybernetic implants running the length of his arms, clapped metallic hands together, demanding silence. "Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed beings of all kinds, we now present Lot 117. The room darkened as the stage lights converged on the center dais. A hush fell over the audience, save for the faint hum of concealed drones recording every moment. Jack leaned forward, his anticipation mounting. A velvet curtain slid away, revealing a container shrouded in shadow. Fog rolled from beneath the pedestal as the container's top hissed open. Instead of the expected artifact, a figure emerged. Jack froze. The being was humanoid but undeniably alien. Her skin shimmered like liquid opal, hues shifting with the light. Her large, luminous eyes held an almost magnetic pull, as though they contained galaxies within them. Her hair, a cascade of silver and blue, flowed down her back like living silk. She wore a simple, tattered robe, and her wrists and ankles bore faint marks of shackles, though she stood unbound. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Whispers rippled like wildfire. Jack's confusion deepened. Was this a joke? A mistake? He opened the catalog on his wristpad, scanning for any mention of a living being. Nothing. His heart sank as the implications hit him. This wasn't a relic. This was a slave auction. The auctioneer's voice boomed, cutting through the murmurs. Lot 117 is a specimen of unparalleled rarity. This creature, hailing from the uncharted planet designated XR-47, is the last of her kind to be captured alive. As you can see, she is in excellent condition and possesses an unparalleled beauty that will make her the envy of any collection. Jack felt a wave of nausea. Around him, bidders were already raising their holopaddles, and the auctioneer called out escalating sums with practiced efficiency. 5 million credits. 7. 10. He clenched his fists, his mind racing. He had come here for a relic, not to participate in this barbarism. Yet something about the girl's eyes stopped him from looking away. There was fear there, yes, but also defiance. She scanned the room, meeting every gaze like a challenge until her eyes locked with his. In that moment, Jack felt something shift inside him. He couldn't let this happen. 20 million credits, he blurted. The room fell silent. Heads turned, and Jack felt the weight of dozens of eyes on him. Even the auctioneer hesitated, his metallic fingers twitching as if recalculating the odds. 20 million credits, the auctioneer finally repeated, his tone almost mocking. Going once. Going twice. Jack's stomach churned. What was he doing? He didn't have 20 million credits. He'd be ruined. And yet, he couldn't stop himself from raising his paddle again, making his bid final. Sold. The auctioneer's gavel came down with a decisive clang. The crowd erupted in murmurs, speculating about the madman who had just overpaid for a living alien. Jack stood frozen as the reality of his actions set in. 2 guards escorted the alien girl toward him, her movements tentative but poised. When she reached him, her luminous eyes searched his face. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. Jack swallowed hard. "What have I done?" he muttered under his breath. The silence in Jack's apartment was deafening, broken only by the hum of the city beyond the transparent walls. Neon lights from New Vega's skyline painted the room in shifting shades of blue and green. Jack paced across the room, his mind spinning as the alien girl sat silently on the plush couch, her shimmering skin reflecting the ambient glow. He still couldn't believe what he'd done. 20 million credits. Credits he didn't have. He had pulled a bluff at the auction, hoping to stall long enough to figure out a plan. Instead, the payment was processed before he could even think of a way out, forcing him into the deepest debt of his life. The auction house's enforcers wouldn't wait long for their payment. He'd bought himself a beautiful alien girl and a ticking clock. The girl, Arya, watched him with quiet curiosity. Her eyes, vast and otherworldly, followed his every move. Despite her silence, her presence filled the room with an intensity Jack couldn't ignore. He stopped pacing and turned to her. "Can you understand me?" he asked hesitantly. For a moment, she didn't respond. Then, slowly, she nodded. Her movements were graceful, deliberate, as though every action was calculated to reveal nothing and everything at once. "Great," Jack muttered. "So, you know I'm not one of them." He gestured vaguely, referring to the bidders at the auction. "I didn't know." He stopped, unsure how to explain his way out of this mess. "I thought I was bidding on an artifact, not you." Arya tilted her head, her luminous eyes narrowing slightly. Then, to Jack's surprise, she spoke, her voice soft but melodic, carrying a slight accent that hinted at its alien origin. "If you didn't know, why did you bid?" Jack hesitated, running a hand through his hair. He couldn't meet her gaze. "I don't know. I couldn't let them take you." Her expression softened, and she regarded him with what looked like a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. "You don't seem like the others," she said, her tone more measured now. "Most wouldn't have cared." "Well, I'm not most people," Jack said, trying to sound confident, though he wasn't sure if he was reassuring her or himself. He sat down across from her, leaning forward. "Look, I don't know how you ended up there, but I'm going to fix this. Somehow." Arya's gaze shifted, and for the first time, Jack saw a flicker of vulnerability behind her calm demeanor. "They took me," she said quietly. "Raiders. They came to my planet, captured those they could, and killed the rest. I don't even know if anyone else survived." Jack felt a pang of guilt and anger. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low. "I had no idea. What's your name?" She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Arya," she said. "And you are?" "Jack," he replied. "Just Jack." For a moment, they sat in silence, the weight of Arya's story hanging between them. Jack felt an overwhelming urge to help her, even though he had no idea how. She was more than a victim, she was a person, a sentient being with a life and a story that had been ripped away from her. He couldn't stand the thought of her being treated as property, something to be bought and sold. "I'll get you out of here," he said suddenly, the words spilling out before he could think. "I'll take you back to your planet." Arya's eyes widened, her expression shifting from surprise to skepticism. "And how do you plan to do that, Jack? Do you even know where my planet is?" Jack faltered. "Not yet," he admitted. "But I'll figure it out. I've got connections, people who can help." She studied him for a long moment, her gaze piercing. Why would you do this? You've already risked everything to stop them from taking me. Why risk more? Jack leaned back, his gaze falling to the floor. He didn't have a good answer. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the way her story reminded him of how powerless he had felt when his own family was taken during a pirate raid years ago. Or maybe it was the way her luminous eyes seemed to look straight through him, making him feel like he owed her more than just an apology. I don't know, he said honestly. But I can't just stand by and do nothing. Arya's expression softened again, and for the first time, she smiled. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Then we'll need a plan, she said. If you're serious about this. Jack straightened, his resolve hardening. I'm serious. Arya nodded. Then you'll need to know more about my people, my planet, and the ones who took me. If we're going to do this, we can't afford to make mistakes. Jack couldn't help but smile. Looks like you're not the helpless damsel I imagined. Arya's smile widened, and for a moment, the tension in the room eased. I've been through too much to be helpless. Jack stood, a new determination surging through him. All right, Arya. Let's get to work. We've got a galaxy to cross and a planet to find. For the first time since the auction, Jack felt like he wasn't entirely out of his depth. Together, they had a chance not just to escape the mess he'd created, but to fight back against a universe that had tried to crush them both. The weeks following Jack's impulsive purchase were a whirlwind of preparation, subterfuge, and danger. His small apartment became a hub of activity as he and Arya pieced together a plan to escape New Vega and make their way across the galaxy. Each step was a delicate dance, one misstep away from disaster. The ship this is it? Arya asked, staring at the rusting hunk of metal Jack had brought her to. They were deep in the shadowy underbelly of New Vega's spaceport, a haven for smugglers and mercenaries. The ship, a worn-out freighter named Starlight Renegade, had clearly seen better days. Jack grinned sheepishly. Hey, don't judge a ship by its hull. She's got a custom hyperdrive, reinforced shields, and... well, she flies. Usually. Arya raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. They didn't have the luxury of being picky. After all, securing a ship capable of interstellar travel without drawing attention had been a monumental task. Jack had burned through every favor he was owed to get his hands on it. As they boarded, Arya ran her hand along the interior walls, her fingers brushing over dents and scorch marks. You weren't lying about the battle scars, she said, a hint of humor in her voice. Jack chuckled as he powered up the control console. The lights flickered to life, bathing the cockpit in a dim orange glow. Scars give a ship character. Now, let's hope the old girl doesn't let us down. The plan their escape route was ambitious, to say the least. Jack had mapped a path through the galaxy's less patrolled sectors, avoiding major trade routes and known pirate strongholds. The goal was to reach the sector where Arya's home planet, Lyrathia, was located. But to do so, they needed to avoid the attention of both the auction house enforcers and the bounty hunters already sniffing around for Arya. We'll make a stop at Oasis Station, Jack explained, pointing to a holographic map projected above the cockpit console. It's a trading hub on the edge of the nebula expanse. We can refuel, gather intel, and pick up some supplies. Arya studied the map intently, her luminous eyes reflecting the glowing lines. And what happens when we're followed? They won't just let us disappear. Jack smirked. That's why I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. He tapped a button, and the ship's panels shifted to reveal hidden compartments. Smuggler's holds. If things go south, we'll have somewhere to hide. Arya gave him a skeptical look but nodded. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. The chase, the first leg of their journey, went smoothly, too smoothly. Jack knew better than to trust his luck, and his instincts proved correct. As they exited a hyperspace jump near the asteroid belt of Kepler Delta, warning alarms blared across the cockpit. "We've got company," Jack shouted, gripping the controls as the ship lurched. On the radar, 3 ships appeared, their sleek designs unmistakable. "Bounty hunters." Arya leaned over his shoulder, her expression tense. "Can we outrun them?" "Not in this bucket," Jack admitted. "But we can outsmart them." "Hang on." He banked the ship hard to the left, weaving through the asteroid field with practiced precision. The pursuing ships fired plasma bolts, the bright streaks narrowly missing the Starlight Renegade as it darted between chunks of rock. Arya strapped herself into the co-pilot's seat, her hands gripping the controls. "Tell me what to do." Jack glanced at her in surprise, but nodded. "Divert power to the rear shields. I'll take us through the densest part of the field. With any luck, they'll either lose us or smash themselves to pieces." Arya's fingers danced over the console, her natural intuition for technology shining through. The rear shields flared to life just as a plasma bolt struck, absorbing the impact. The chase was relentless, the bounty hunters matching their every maneuver. Jack's jaw tightened. "They're good. Too good." Arya's eyes narrowed. "Then we changed the game." She reached for a lever on the console, activating the ship's mining laser. The beam fired into a massive asteroid ahead, sending a shower of debris into the path of their pursuers. One ship veered off course, slamming into a rock and exploding in a burst of flame. Jack whooped. "Nice shot." The remaining 2 ships pressed on, but the delay had given Jack an opening. He guided the Starlight Renegade toward a dense cluster of asteroids, their irregular shapes creating a labyrinth. "This is going to get tight," Jack muttered, sweat beading on his brow. Arya remained calm, her focus unshaken. "I trust you." The word spurred Jack on, and with a final, daring maneuver, he threaded the ship through a narrow gap. One of the pursuing ships clipped an asteroid and spiraled out of control, leaving only one left. Jack activated the hyperdrive. "Hold on to something." The stars blurred, and with a jolt, the ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving their pursuers behind. The bond. When the ship stabilized, Jack leaned back in his seat, letting out a shaky laugh. "Well, that was fun." Arya unbuckled herself, her expression softening. "You're reckless." "Reckless got us out of there," Jack said, flashing a grin. Arya shook her head but smiled. "It worked." "Thank you." Jack met her gaze, the weight of the moment sinking in. They had survived because they had trusted each other, a fragile partnership forged in desperation but growing stronger with every challenge. "Well," Jack said, breaking the silence, one step closer to home. Arya's smile faded slightly, a flicker of longing crossing her face. "Home," she whispered. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll get there. I promise." Arya nodded, her resolve firming. "Then let's not waste any time." As they prepared for the next leg of their journey, Jack felt something shift between them. What had started as a rescue mission was becoming something more, a shared purpose, a bond forged in the stars. And he knew, deep down, that they would need that bond to survive what lay ahead. The final hyperspace jump brought the Starlight Renegade to the edge of the Lyrathia system. Jack and Arya sat silently in the cockpit, watching as the swirling blue void of hyperspace collapsed into the breathtaking sight of a star illuminating a cluster of planets. Among them was Arya's home Lyrathia. The planet was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. Vast oceans sparkled like liquid sapphire, their surfaces reflecting ribbons of emerald and gold auroras that stretched across the atmosphere. Massive, crystalline formations jutted out from the oceans, glowing faintly with bioluminescence. Orbiting the planet was a ring of shattered moon debris, glittering like a necklace of stars. "It's beautiful," Jack murmured, his voice filled with awe. Arya didn't respond immediately. She leaned forward, her hands gripping the edge of the console as tears shimmered in her eyes. I never thought I'd see it again, she whispered. Jack's heart ached at her vulnerability. We're not there yet, he reminded her gently. Let's make sure we get you home in one piece. The approach as they descended toward the planet, Jack's comm systems crackled to life. A stern voice spoke in a language Jack couldn't understand, but Aria's expression shifted from wonder to determination. She quickly responded in her native tongue, her tone firm but calm. What's happening? Jack asked, glancing at her. They've detected us, Aria explained, her fingers flying across the console as she relayed information to the planetary defense systems. I told them who I am. They're scanning to confirm. Moments later, the comms crackled again, this time with a softer, more welcoming tone. Aria's tense shoulders relaxed, and she turned to Jack. They're letting us land. They've been waiting for a sign that someone survived. Jack exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Let's hope they like surprises, he muttered, guiding the ship toward the designated landing zone. The Starlight Renegade touched down on a platform made of crystal and stone, its surface shimmering in the golden light of the planet's twin suns. A small crowd had gathered, their features strikingly similar to Aria's, luminous eyes, shimmering skin, and an air of ethereal grace. At the center stood an elder whose robes flowed like liquid starlight. The reunion as Aria stepped off the ship, the crowd erupted in murmurs of astonishment. The elder stepped forward, his voice trembling with emotion as he called out to her in their native tongue. Aria ran to him, their embrace a poignant mixture of relief and sorrow. The elder placed his hands on her shoulders, his words flowing with gratitude and reverence. Jack stayed at the base of the ramp, feeling out of place in the midst of such an emotional reunion. He watched as the crowd began to kneel before Aria, their awe unmistakable. Aria turned back to Jack, gesturing for him to join her. He hesitated, unsure of his role in this moment, but she reached out her hand, her expression leaving no room for argument. Jack, she said softly, her voice carrying across the platform. This is Jack. Without him, I wouldn't be here. The elder approached Jack, his gaze piercing yet warm. He spoke in Lyrathian, but Aria translated. He says you are a friend of our people and that you have done us a great service. Jack scratched the back of his neck, feeling uncharacteristically shy. I just did what anyone would have done, he said awkwardly. Aria smiled, her eyes glinting with affection. Not anyone, she said. You did. The truth about Lyrathia. As the day unfolded, Jack learned more about Lyrathia and its people. The crystalline formations were the planet's lifeblood, channels of energy that sustained the environment and powered their technology. The raiders who had attacked Aria's planet sought to harvest these crystals for their energy, destroying Lyrathia's delicate balance in the process. Aria had been a navigator, responsible for leading her people's ships to safety when the raiders struck. She had stayed behind to ensure others escaped, only to be captured. Now, her return symbolized hope for a people struggling to rebuild. The decision. As the sun set, casting the sky in hues of violet and gold, Jack found himself standing on a balcony overlooking the vast crystalline plains. Aria joined him, her presence as calming as the scenery. You don't have to stay, she said gently. You've already done more than I could have asked. If you want to go back to your life, I understand. Jack looked at her, his thoughts swirling. The life he'd left behind felt distant now. The chaos of New Vega, the endless chase for artifacts, it all seemed hollow compared to what he'd found with Aria. She wasn't just another job or another adventure. She was someone he cared about deeply, someone who had changed him. I'm not sure I have much to go back to, he admitted. But I think maybe I found something worth staying for. Aria's gaze softened, and she reached for his hand. Then stay. Help us rebuild. Be part of something bigger. Jack smiled, squeezing her hand. I think I'd like that. A new beginning. Over the following weeks, Jack became part of Lyrathia's efforts to recover and rebuild. He worked alongside the Lyrathians, using his knowledge of off-world technology to help them adapt and protect their world. His bond with Arya deepened, their partnership evolving into something neither of them had expected. One evening, as they stood together under Lyrathia's twin moons, Jack looked up at the endless stars. He had spent his life chasing artifacts, chasing glory, chasing meaning. And now, he realized, he had found all of that and more, not in an object, but in a person. Arya rested her head on his shoulder, her voice soft but certain. "You're home now, Jack." And for the first time, he knew it was true.